I'm just waiting for Anki. I don't see her. Oh, you like it? Good. I'm glad to hear that. Apparently, I was told by an Ayurvedic doctor, if you drink it every day for 3 months, it will get rid of your seasonal allergies. I'm like a month and a half in. I don't know if it works yet, but...
I use this turmeric, like kind of a bit more raw and kind of with tea, and then for a certain period of time I use it, and then I can't anymore, but this is better.
Yeah, okay. I usually boil the root, but I didn't find it in the grocery store here. Well, this small one. I only looked, yeah.
This is really delicious, so I might be able to drink it.
Okay, good. Well, there's so much. Please take some home, honestly. I made it for, the army here, as we say. Okay.
Lovely. I think we're ready to start.
Okay, great.
Welcome everyone to the artist talk of Christalena Hughmanick and here to Residency B28. We're very happy to have you here, and also everybody who is following the stream online, welcome. And today we have a really interesting topic where you, Christalena, talk about your artistic work and your connection to the nature and the colors of nature. So we are very much looking forward to it.
Great.
So please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much for the very warm welcome, Anki, and everybody here. And also thank you, Panu, for your amazing promotion. Really beautiful. So I am an artist working with techniques and ideas that are linked to the experience of the natural world. My work begins with walking, traveling, moving, and generating ideas for performances, texts. I take a lot of field recordings for sound, images on film, and I forage plant materials for teas, as you saw today, and textiles. I was going to make dandelion tea, but I missed them. That was the plan, but they seem to be gone. This effort is motivated by my eternally deep female connection to nature and creation that I aim to embed into broader art world dialogues. Theoretical threads of ecofeminism and hydrofeminism take inspiration from Donna Haraway's methods for strengthening interdisciplinary and interspecies thinking and collaboration. My ongoing method of observational recording looks at human relationships to material culture and the scaled production systems that have generated it through time. So simply put, who made that, how, and under what conditions. The specificity of this inquiry has to do with the relationship between humans, architecture, and nature. This cycle of production and consumption is weighing on her. It is weighing on all of us. For a period, I traveled almost constantly, looking for the moment that building materials shifted from being raw mined stones hewn from the earth to human-made standardized units of building material, which led me to concrete. It was first used on a minor scale in Mesopotamia, but Roman architects perfected it during their epic building crusade at the end of the 2nd century by mixing stone rubble, liquid mortar, lime, sand, and pozzolana, which is volcanic ash, to create a poured foundation that actually strengthens over time as it cures. So this renders these structures possibly stronger now than when they were built. So think of that stray column that's still standing, and that is why. It was cast into custom-built and reusable wooden molds, freeing architects from the rectilinear traditional Greek aesthetic they had previously been following. With this ingenious invention, Romans conquer large swaths of land with their techniques, subsuming small cultures and languages all along the way. This reminds me of watching continual demolition and rebuilding that happens in city neighborhoods as they gentrify, because I usually live in those neighborhoods first in cities. Archaeologists are motivated by the possibility that there is something to uncover about past people within layers of dirt, dust, and disintegrating structures. This secondary form of production gives us written history about our previous selves, but can we really know? Humans have always experienced maternal intimacy with nature. It is me and I am it. As we evolved from the primordial ooze of original cellular birth, we continued a long-term relationship with our Mother Nature that occasionally catches its own reflection in the distant hall of mirrors that is recorded history. At some point, however, we began to recognize ourselves as separate from her by exploiting resources like a child, first noticing its body removed from the breast of which it drinks too much. It is not without distance, however, that truths are found. The material makeup of all architecture has been sourced from the mother, with varying degrees of intervention, beginning with mud bricks and evolving to concrete, glass, and plastic, which now consume her. I gaze into piles of crumbling stones. Their auras emanate now and into the future, invoking previous lives of constructed formality. Can I hold the many hands that have already touched them? And can touching be another form of time travel? So I work with a lot of different techniques, and I'm going to show you a couple of recent projects that relate to why specifically I came to Finland and am interested in working here. I'll try to show things that maybe you wouldn't otherwise just see on my website or online presence, starting with this walk that I did through Iceland. In performance works, I move between roles of amateur botanist, ethnographer, and spiritual medium to investigate the relationships of producer to consumer and also artist to viewer. I consider desire broadly as a unifying force for these projects. So this performance, called Pilgrims Way or Pilgrims Leden, these performances are mostly collaborative in nature. So I work with the audience, sometimes existing organizations, or one artistic partner. I am previously a ballet modern dancer. I grew up doing that, and so I have this, I love performing with groups. There's just something so much better about having your friends with you. So in the case of this performance, I worked with the first friend I made in Iceland. His name is Bjorn Jonsson, and he's a clothing designer and also a natural dyer. And we really like this old fish factory. It's a gallery in the West Fjords. And we were drawn to this space because the family that established this town left Reykjavik to raise their large family there, and they basically established the town. There are now 53 residents, and they get stuck there from September or something to May because the snow is so heavy in that area of Iceland that it covers the roads. So they prepare those 53 residents to spend the summer or the winter together. So we were really interested in this kind of choice to remove oneself from society and this kind of absence. So we proceeded to write this letter to the space. They also own the hotel right next to it, and just introduce ourselves. And we really wanted to have a show, so we typed this letter and we mailed it in the mail. And we never heard back, it got lost. But a couple of months later, we actually were asked by a curator, completely not related to this letter, to be in a show. And for that, we felted these 2 coats for ourselves out of Icelandic sheep's wool, and then cut them up and stitched them to make these coats. And we walked from Thingvellir, which is the place where the tectonic plates meet, and we ended in Skalholt, which is in the south. And we called this our pilgrimage. So this was actually an ancient pilgrim's way for bishops in the settlement and Christian era of Iceland. And one of Bjorn's ancestors, it was his grandfather 14 times, he says, was a bishop, and he traveled this path many times. And when he was buried in the church in Skalholt, they took his body on this path. So that was kind of an interesting part of this project. We found his tomb and everything. And I'm gonna play a bit of sound because a big part of my practice, as I said, is recording. And so on this pilgrim's journey, I took a couple of field recordings. There's another one here. Okay. And then in one of the places we stayed on a lake, and it was raining, and there were just a ton of different kinds of birds, like all on this lake at one time. So let's see if this one works. This one's called Rain on a Lake. And I publish all of these, so you can find them on Spotify and YouTube and things. Oh, no, that sounds like more walking. Okay, that didn't, the birds did not quite work. So basically, we took the sound recordings and installed them on a huge speaker in the fish factory for this group show that happened in 2022. And then we just hung the coats up, and that was it. And it's worth noting that the cover image of this lecture and the first one I showed is an elf yard that we found in Iceland on that walk, which just means that elves live in the stones that are in that space, if you believe in elves, of course. If you don't, they're not there. Okay, and then this next project is called The Women Who Plant Trees. This project happened from August of 21 to December of 2022, and it links art and forestry with the intent of bringing the practice to the general public through my artistic perspective. It gives visibility to women who have been and still are participating in the reforestation efforts led in Iceland since the 1930s. So you're welcome to scan a QR code if you would like to listen to any of these interviews that I did with these women in forestry. So I spoke to lots of them. Most of them are in a position of power. They're like the head of the forest in that town or that region. And so I just talked to them about their daily engagements with the forests, how they do group planting, how they maintain the spaces. They do a lot of social gathering as well. That's a big aspect of Icelandic forestry. And I noticed that it is quite uncommon for so many women to be in charge in other Nordic countries. So they're really proud of this aspect of this, the uniqueness of their groups. And it was just a really interesting project. We walked around the forest and we picked blueberries and, talked about stuff. I took a lot of recordings, sound recordings as well. This woman, this one is really interesting if you are interested in mythology or, like I said, the elves, because she has some really wild stories about her property that she lives on and some things that have happened there that she's witnessed. And she was not shy to share that, which I really enjoyed. And then I took all of this information that I gathered and had a solo show at Liget Gallery in Budapest. And it was mostly photographs that I took. There was one video playing. The gallery translated the interview into Hungarian subtitles so that viewers could understand that. There's a large format photo on the left. I had a slideshow of my photographs that I'm always taking. And then at the end, I did an impromptu meditation performance at the opening, which is part of a series that I'm going to talk about now that I call Considerations. I used tuning forks in this one to align individual energy and to raise the collective vibration while reading something that I had written that morning. It was something about following the wisdom of the pigeons that I was walking around in the morning. But I want to talk about this series a little bit. The first one that I did was in Chicago in 2018 at an artist-run space called Triumph. In the role of what I call transmuter, I've now conducted 6 iterations of this engagement series. My participants that I call seekers were asked to choose what I call an option and then quiet the mind to locate a secret within. So these are the options. Together, we will create a void in waking reality that allows for new growth. Only you know what you need. The next iteration was at Lawrence and Clark, also in Chicago in 2018. A gallerist, Jason Pickelman, held this private event for his closest friends and art collectors. And the options are, for context, they're pieces of concrete that I collect while I'm running, and then I run home with it, and then I clean it and dip it into rubber. So it has kind of like a handle on it, in which case it can be used as a kind of physical prop or a way to kind of like improve your physical stamina, or in this performance, people put their secrets into it, kind of metaphysically. So it also has a kind of spiritual guiding principle here. And Jason actually purchased all of them that were used in the performance for the people that had attended, so they were able to take them home. This is what I did in Budapest, but in 2019 at a solo show that I had at Farjofi Gallery. These are all my fellow Fulbrighters. And then this one is from Reykjavik in 2020. I invited seekers to choose one of these 22 sculptures that I made in collaboration with the mediums of time and nature, specifically a volcano. The igneous pieces of basalt having formed through the cooling and solidification of magma or lava. This oceanic island basalt is composed of rhyolite, and because it's highly viscous, favors explosive eruptions over effusive ones. It sprouted from Gaia herself, as the goddess Athena was born from the forehead of Zeus. It will outlast you, but what else did you expect from the center of your Mother Earth? Paint made of red ochre, collected from below the outdoor stairs of the residence, was added to each option in order to locate time and place. Seekers placed their option on a chosen part of their body, and we closed our eyes and we considered the physical properties of the color, texture, weight, composition, place of origin, and current state of existence. We asked it some questions, if it was happy. We took a firm grip on it, we listened to it, we smelled it, some people tasted it, and then I asked them if it told them anything. So as the transmuter, I read a previously prepared long-form text, which I've put some sections of in here, to aid the seekers in isolating their most omnipresent desire. As the tectonic plates spread at a rate of 2.5 centimeters per year below us. In the context of the many definitions of the term subtle, and through articulated breathing, desires were visualized outside of the body as planetary wonders. To play with and admire, rotating at supersonic speeds to gradual implosion until forming the most perfect sphere in the known universe. Can you see that your option now houses your wonder, your secret, a perfect union, a shelter, a resting place, a lighthouse. So then I hiked all the pieces up a mountain because a volcano started erupting a couple of days after this. And that was in 2021. And this is the sort of first eruption, and this is the first path. At that time, we were really just kind of hiking the mountain. There was no established path yet. Now it's quite easy, actually. And then let's see if this will play. In a gesture of rebirth, I threw all of the options into the end of the lava flow so that it sort of became lava again. How much lava is coming out of the center, and then at these ends of these flows, it's moving so slowly, which you're not really supposed to get that close to it either, but nobody was injured in this, the beginning of these eruptions. And they had the search and rescue teams there, kind of like making sure people were not doing stupid things. It was hot. Actually, you will see the search and rescue people. They walk by and they were not concerned. I mean, the Icelandic way is like, you take care of yourself. Like, we're not taking responsibility if you hurt yourself. I think that was the last one. So this next iteration of a consideration was in Venice in 2023, and it used lava also, but this was recently cooled from that same eruption site, and I placed them on this dyed cloth in the center of this gallery space. I first lured people off the streets into the palazzo with the sound of my tuning forks. And I proceeded to tune whoever was open to the idea, which was not many. These people were very freaked out. And so I invited the viewers to choose one of the options, and then we carried out a series of physical exercises with the lava, including this shamanic practice of blowing into an object. You can see that's what they're doing here. To remove prior energies. So I found this Italian audience to be either like really into it and excited and engaged, or really laughing under their breath, like they were mortified for me. So I welcomed both responses. It was really interesting. And the continuation of this activity was intended really to collectively examine the fundamental nature of reality, including the relationship between mind and matter, substance and attribute, potentiality and actuality. And I call these considerations, they're run under this organization that I have named the Truth Guide for the Beginner's Mind, which is an ongoing engagement series that considers the most common and ending of pursuits to feel satisfied, fulfilled, and complete. So I want to also talk about dying. You might have noticed that I create, arrange, and alter objects for installation spaces that are usually performances take place within. And one common method for making works for these contexts is dyeing and making patterns on fabrics with plants, which has become my absolute obsession. It sort of keeps me constantly connected to nature as I follow what plants are ready to harvest and when. And you think more about the weather and the seasons changing. And I feel a bit like an ancient alchemist or witch or something, turning plants into these dye baths of color and thick syrups for inks, and also consumable teas. So my considerations became kind of collaborative with Claire Amé in 2024, with 2 iterations of what we retitled Everyone Deserves a Portal, because, well, we believe that escape from reality is absolutely necessary sometimes. We foraged Reykjavik, which is a form of a blueberry, and I think something like 10 liters. And we prepared these patterns on cloth. This is what they look like close up. And they are ready for foraging in October usually. So we took those and we prepared this pattern all over the cloth together, and we made an octagonal portal. This was part of the performance festival at Akureyri Art Museum last fall called A, which is great, performance festival I recommend. And guests were invited to come into the octagon one at a time or in small groups to undergo a time travel meditation. So we gave them a journey through past, present, and future through scents that were made. You can see the bottles there. And then they had the option of taking one of the scents home with them on a small handkerchief that we dyed with the crikey bear. So I'm gonna play a short clip of one of our favorite exchanges we've had in doing this performance, because in 1 hour you can have like 60 people or something. So every time we do this, it's a bit of a whirlwind, but then this was the very last one, and it's just about 4 minutes long.
I'm Christalena. I'm going to be your time travel facilitator. Yes, we've designed these 3 scents to bring out notes of the past, present, and future in you.
Yeah.
And if you're willing, I'd like to take you on a short meditation. So we can do it together and close our eyes. Take a few deep breaths. And we begin with the past. The past is foundational. It's in our root chakra, which is located at the base of your spine. So imagine yourself breathing out of that space, going straight into the earth. Down, down, all the way to the center of the earth. Now I'll take you to the present, which is located in your heart chakra. And to the future. Think about the space between your eyes and your forehead, your third eye. That's how you see it. Or them. Imagine the energy coming out of the top of your head, going into space, eventually reaching the sun and rooting into the sun. The future is shiny, tiny, intuition and union. When you feel ready, come back to the portal. But no rush. Did you go on a journey?
Yeah.
Where did you go?
I went where the sun is working. The sun is working in the center of Earth. I was with the sun and the Earth. And she is reuniting, regenerating, rebirthing the Earth. Then I was here, but within myself. Centering, and then I was anchoring the sun. I was with the sun the whole time.
Satellite?
Yes.
Sun regenerates Earth from core.
Almost a haiku.
How many syllables missing?
+1.
Minus from.
The center of the earth.
Center of Earth.
Black.
Crystal. Glowing.
Dragon.
Teeth.
Biting and clawing at my chest.
But it feels good.
Yes, it does.
Satellite?
Yes.
Are you an Earthling satellite?
No.
Are you from Sirius?
That sounds familiar, but I don't know actually where I'm from.
I'm from Sirius as well.
Blue.
What can you tell me?
I know nothing and I'm a nobody.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
So the participants, I would basically ask them what they saw and experienced, and then start repeating words back to Claire, who was outside circling as the satellite. But that was an interesting one because the participant got very involved and sort of like had a lot to say, so that was fun. This is an example of what they get and then sort of take home with them. And so back to a little bit of solo work. This piece is called Handholding in a Cosmic Disco, and it's a quilt diptych sewn completely by hand with naturally dyed fabrics. I thought it was worth mentioning that I do quilting, and I'm from where the Amish people first settled in the US, Lancaster, Pennsylvania. And I have a really large-scale public quilting projects that I do, and I teach from this. It's a big part of my practice, but it's like a very separate lecture because it's so intense and long and heavy history. But these are just some of the pieces that I've made in the last couple of years. This one was in the Budapest show, these. And these were made in response to these ancient ruins in Budapest, the Roman ruins called Aquincum. And, you know, I'm always looking for that sort of relationship with humans and nature. But at this time, I was thinking a lot also about Rosalind Krauss's 1978 essay on grids as modernist art. So you can start to think about the grid as an imposed form of order onto the chaos of nature. So for example, latitude and longitude, binary code, the grid embodies both the materiality and the aspirations of the modernist art effort. We are not in modernism any longer, but we still seek guidance and are almost controlled by hidden grids that oppose the messiness and unpredictability of nature. So the grid is a really big part of quilting. And weaving, a lot of textile processes. And I made this exhibition while in residence at Jutars in Vanta last year in June. Actually, Adolfo took these photos, thank you. It looks at knot tying practices that have been used for magic, play, and physical healing. So the child's game of, there's a better picture. The child's game of making string figures on the hands was used both to predict the future and to cast spells in ancient folk traditions. So I also found that in the field of medicine, the earliest known account of string figures is around 100 AD. They were used for surgical knots. And examples of these specific knots depicted in the works here were known to help a woman breastfeed. This one was for a cheating husband. It would cause impotence. It's like a folk legend. You would just tie this series of knots and slip it under his pillow at night, and he would not even know what hit him, apparently. And so they would also be used on animals to cure cramps, like muscle cramps. And this was common in Central Europe and Scandinavia. So I came across this in Hungary as well. It was super interesting for me to find also that the practice of string figures has mostly been kept alive by children and indigenous women. And it is something that I did as a child, so I love it. These pieces used natural dyeing, hand stitching, macrame, and materials have been sourced from Icelandic nature. So I used a lot of dandelions, lupine, rowan tree berries, and also Finland. So I used the pink granite that's everywhere. I was just picking it up off the ground and macrameing it into this kind of hanging curtain 70s era piece here. And then I made inks as well with plants and made a series of paintings, and I have postcards here, they're in the back, of prints of these paintings. So I also teach both college studio courses and free public library workshops because I really believe that everyone should have access to knowledge. And I find that textile formats provide a great way to build community because the processes are very slow and meditative and sometimes collaborative. My workshops are either based in using plants to make prints, which is what's happening here. Really funny that it was in a library because it was so loud. The sound is not included, but it was like 20 hammers going at one time, and no one could talk for that one. Or sometimes I do collective quilting workshops, and I'm going to be doing that actually in Iceland. I'm going to be making a collective quilt at all of the workshops so that people can come and learn how to do it and also contribute something to a collective work. And I'm focusing in the outreach mainly on immigrants and refugees who are there waiting for work permits and have nothing to do. And I just want to kind of engage people that might be stuck without much to do. This is one of the other flower pounding workshops. That's kind of a little idea of what it looks like. And then I began taking field recordings in locked down Iceland while on an artist residency in 2020. This really unmediated and solitary time in the wild nature was the start of my sound practice, which is continually evolving. The country was shut down, and I rented a car, and I just drove all over and recorded the sounds of these places with no people in the nature. And then I put it on the White Noise app, if you are a fan of that app, and they went viral, I think because people couldn't travel, and they were using this app as a way of like hearing the sounds from different places. But something just hit about Iceland during COVID. So these are the two albums that I've published. One from 2021, and the recent one, Glossia Obscura, is from April. I just did that one. And then I'll play a little bit of like sample sounds from them for you. This is the lava that you kind of already heard. Obviously my banger. This is the wind in the residency that I was living in. It used to be like a place where fishermen would stop and sleep. It's right on the coast. It was a horribly built building, and the wind would just go right through it, through the hallway, and keep everybody awake at night. And I think like that's the thing about the weather there. It's so imposing, but at the same time, I started to feel like the wind was speaking to me, like that I could hear words and understand concepts from it after a while. So I thought I would just embrace it when I couldn't sleep and see what I could create. It was a sleepless but fruitful period of my life. And then there's some birds. This is at the Reykjavik beach, the black beach in the south. And this is one of my favorites. It's also at that beach. And it was in April or May, I think. And all of these huge icicles were still there, but they were melting into the sand. So I'm just going kind of in this order. And then from the new album, this is my nephew's heartbeat right before he was born, so he's still in utero. This is the inside of the Hagia Sophia, the building in Istanbul that's been used for so many different religious purposes. Also was a museum for a very long time. Now it's a mosque. So everyone was sitting on the floor and having a break from this crazy city streets. But I've gone to this building many times over the course of a couple of years and been able to see it kind of, it's evolved from a museum now back to a mosque. That sound is not coming from me. Oh, it's a bird. Oh, perfect. That's just the kind of collaboration I was hoping for today. Yeah, you can't make the best stuff. It just already exists. Maybe the bird will like this one. This is the loa. It's the bird that comes to Iceland in the spring. So when you hear it, you know spring is coming. And it's a really distinct noise. Has anyone heard this bird before? You kind of always remember where you are when you hear the first loa. Because you're like, oh, I made it. So I also write these short affirmative texts to be said out loud every day with the intention that the speaker will become the natural element that the poem is written about. So I wrote them all while in nature, experiencing the elements. For example, the wind poem came from very quickly to mind while I was trying to jog in a yellow wind warning, which is not a good idea. But I always tell people that purchase these that they should let me know if it works, like if they turn into something, momentarily. So these are the options that I have so far. And I brought some of these as well, if you'd like to read them closer. And I type everything on a typewriter. I don't know why that's important to say, but it takes a bit of time, I guess, and it's a little more intentioned action. So I also gather a lot of extraneous material. I am a heavy researcher, so I developed this subscription-based project on Patreon where I generate content at least twice a month. Some of it's free, some paid. I use this idea of a gloss in terms of like one gathering text or portions of other people's text and then responding to it with your own thoughts. I do this, through a whisper, so these are ASMR. Also, I include a lot of field recordings, a lot of sounds that I take from nature. Everything is paired with a film image, and sometimes I also give people kind of exercises for how to breathe, move energy in the body, like things like this. I just make them up. I use them myself, but that's sort of what this project is. And they're each about like 3 to 18 minutes in length. They're getting longer as I go through this. Pretty soon they're just going to be like hour-long lectures like this one. But I pair it with the photograph that I take on my 25-year-old Nikon N80 film camera. I've just used the same camera forever so that the pictures generally look the same. The root of this work intends to affirm, encourage, educate, and remind viewers of our shared experience and potential for communion. Through simple mental exercises and meditations on extinction, I aim to provide a catalyst for the listener to better understand their internal and external landscape. So this one's a little bit longer. I think it's about 8 minutes, but I'm going to just play this for you. Mostly because it's called Isms and Asians, and I think, as I'm giving this talk and in this context, we always have to categorize our work in this way, like, what isms is our work, what are we? That's a necessary part of being an artist, but at the end of the day, it's all about just being in the work and making it and also being in the nature for me. So I will give you a little sample of this work.
Hey, it's Studio CH here, tuning in from an undisclosed location as I was recently introduced in a virtual meeting. I've been looking at myths that speak to science and history and have some specified isms and Asians just for you. For the sake of continuity, I will tell you an Ojibwe legend of a miles-long comet that kissed the Earth hard enough to create a great flood. The Great Flood. It's pretty much the same as all other flood myths. In summary, the Great Spirit was angry with people. If we're being teacherly here, the stories always use the term man, so do what you will with that distinction. The Spirit sends a natural disaster in an act of divine retribution. We recognize this narrative, no? Don't anger the abstract figure. These natives migrated in small groups west from the northeastern U.S. to places around the Great Lakes. The Great Lake. The decision to move, like most important ones, was initiated by visions or prophecies. Are these just one way of inserting ourselves into unmediated nature? See footnote 1. Footnote 1. The Ojibwe name comes from a specific puckered seam on the moccasin. As a textile artist, I find beauty in this form versus function, industry-specific detail. So, where did all that floodwater go? Scientists use what is called Uniformitarianism to look at modern-day geological events, whether as sudden as an earthquake or as slow as the erosion of a river valley, to understand past events. It is the idea that the earth has always changed in uniform ways, that the present is the key to the past. Think about that. Let me tell you quickly how contentious this concept can be within scientific communities, and I'm not even a scientist. Actually, I won't bother, but I will point out the general lack of universal belief in anything beyond sex and death. And the first haiku. Gradualism draws teeth of cataclysm. Immanentism. Evapotranspiration is the combined processes which moves water from open water, ice, wet, bare dirt, and slippery vegetation into the atmosphere. This definition forgets our bodies, however, as exquisite ecosystems consuming and producing liquid within the larger one at hand. You can draw a body to water, but you can't make it drink. Stay lubricated, kids. When I went hiking on a glacier with my friend Scotty, we asked the guide why glaciers are blue. Pure ice has the properties of minerals. Like a sapphire gem, it reflects blue color of the light spectrum, short waves, so that the color blue reaches our eyes, and the rest, primarily red, which are long waves, become trapped in a temporary transparent mass of ancient biological determinism. Red light is swallowed by the ice, while lucky little blue is transmitted and scattered within the intact object. To drink from a melted glacier if given the chance. The death of something very old can be cause for mourning, even if it's inanimate. In 2014, a funeral was held for a glacier in Iceland. It was, at the time, the smallest glacier in the country, but one of the largest to disappear. Its name spelled OK, but pronounced Ok, was obviously not okay for a long time. All kinds of people were united in attending this event. Its promotion in retrospect seemed to be devoid of political opinion, for obvious reasons. One does have the option to deny climate change as a result of human action, but it's not possible to deny the fact that a glacier is objectively disappearing in front of their eyes. It can be hard to accept that someone is dead if you don't see them dying, but it doesn't make it any less true. The writer of On Time and Water, Andries Snare, said, "Our existence is going against future generations. That is an unbearable existential dilemma." During the funeral ceremony, he put a memorial plaque in the space that the glacier once occupied, stating that it points to the future, back to us, with awareness that what we're doing is hopefully something people will see in 200 years. This memorial plaque was meant, he said, to connect us to the intimate time of the future. This really reminds me of an AI-generated horoscope that I got this week. It says, "Your main challenge right now is to question how far you've come in your efforts to fulfill your ideals and to identify what changes you want to make. There is no limit to suffering. It is a marvel that any of us survive. You will never have enough tears for the exponential potential for human affliction. Try not to stoke your flames of angst." Thanks, Internet. And the second haiku. Small blue tears wait for evapotranspiration, where glacier meets sea.
I'm obviously writing this around a couple of haikus. I'm always writing haikus. I wrote that last one at the glacier. And yeah, it's just, I don't even edit these. I like sit down an hour before I'm going to do it. I just write it out, whatever I'm thinking, whatever research I've been doing, and then I kind of just put it out there. So it's kind of a fun way to use extraneous content, talk about what I'm thinking about, and, engage people. So I've been making a lot of digital content, so if you're interested in following any of these things, that's the QR to take you to my link tree. I also have a brand of clothing and home textiles that I make and dye with plants that I did not put in here, but that's on my website and the web shop. And yeah, that's it. Just thank you so much for having me, and I will be here picking plants for the next 3 weeks. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for being patient with all the listening.
Thank you so much, Christalena.
Yeah.
I think many of us are interested in knowing more about your plans here in Suomenlinna and what you are going to pick and do during the coming 3 weeks. If you could expand on that,
Yeah,
please.
absolutely. So I don't know what plants I'm going to work with, but I'm interested in working with invasive species in particular. As a kind of metaphor, we have the lupina in Iceland also, and it's a real problem. Like, it's taking over the landscape and can, threaten the or ancient moss and lichen. So and it's very hard to get rid of, So that's like something here that I'm interested in maybe working with because it connects those two places. But I also think that the invasive plant is a kind of metaphor for how people occupy spaces, At first, people are considered invasive and they're not wanted. And this is something that's happening so broadly in the world right now. And these conversations about like who has the right to live in what places is incredibly important. And so, although I just love picking flowers all day, I do think there are like some underlying more serious conversations that could be had. And that's something I'm interested in learning more about here definitely. Like how the island has been kind of settled and cultivated, and what that landscape of human interaction looks like.
Other comments, questions?
Like there is this island called Kuninkaansaari next to Vallisaari.
Mm-hmm.
So in that area there are like very specific plants that were brought by the Russian soldiers that came to Finland, and also there are these butterflies too.
Oh.
But yeah. So it can be like an island can protect animals and plants, but also, I mean, they can stay separated there and be protected by the separateness.
So they haven't migrated to other places.
I think less so. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting.
It's next to Bali, so.
Okay, what is the name of it again?
Kuninkaansaari.
Okay.
Yeah.
That translates to the island of the king.
Okay. Thank you. That's good to know.
Here in Suomenlinna, you really, at this time, you really feel like the geese think that they are the kings and queens of the island. They will not move.
They're protecting their teenage babies. Yeah. Yeah.